Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Today we're just going to be taking a look at one of our older resources, actually. Vehicle attachment. Funnily enough, I believe this may actually be my most popular resource, if memory serves. Which is surprising, because I'm generally known to be the fire EMS guy. But back around the time that I wrote and released this resource, which was, well, let's have a look. Many moons ago. 2021. This thing is 5 years old. Holy cow. Anyway, back when I wrote and released this initially, there just wasn't anything quite like it. I mean, there were certainly other scripts, but nothing that was just sort of simple and to the point. I remember reading a comment, I think it's still somewhere on the forum post, and it basically said something like, when I first saw the script, I thought it was just another attachment script, and then I saw your demo and I realized this was it. Because it's so simple. It did exactly what it said on the tin. It lets you attach vehicles to vehicles to vehicles to vehicles to vehicles to vehicles. Now, technically, this is, quote, archived. The resource is old. I haven't updated it in 4 years, evidently. Except for the not supported notice, which I added 4 months ago. But I saw a comment the other day that mentioned, hey, you should update it and sell it and whatever, and it'd be really popular. And it made me realize that I'm an idiot and people still use this thing even to this day. So I'm going to take a look. I'm not making any promises. Just saying that right now, getting out in front of it. I'm not making any promises, but I will take a look and I will see. And point of clarification, I won't sell this. If I do an update, it'll be free for everyone on GitHub, just like the original version. Obviously, I make paid scripts. That is not a secret. I have a Tebex store. You are welcome to go look. But I'm not a huge fan of the idea of recreating this and then selling it, because there isn't really anything I'm adding, you know? Like, if I do an update, it'll probably fix some bugs, improve some things, hopefully, improve performance, you know, whatever. But I'm not adding anything substantial versus something like the original Fire Alarms release, for example, compared with the Fire Alarms Reborn. Huge difference there. Tons of new features, tons of new UI and all that stuff. So I felt comfortable putting that one up for a paid release. This one, free, will continue to be free. Anyway, let's have a look, shall we? I had a very quick glance before I started the stream, and I immediately cringed. So we'll see how we go. This is some very old code. But actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. Before I even do that, we need to do a new branch, because I don't want to be doing it directly to master. So let's create a new branch. We'll call it feature v2. v3. Haha, we're skipping straight to v3. No, feature v2. All right, now let's look at the code. So it still follows my basic structure. This is old. Like, this goes back to when I was still fairly new to C#. But I'm glad that it still follows this basic structure. For those that haven't seen a lot of my C# resources before, this is the structure I generally break my stuff up into. Configuration variables, or nowadays, as I call them, constant variables. Those are things that don't really change, but are still handy to be able to change at the top of the file, because they might be referenced in numerous places. Really easy example, change amount, like in movement, for example. Like if you have your attachment, say you're putting a bicycle on a car, and you tap the left arrow and it moves a little bit to the left, how much it moves. That might be a configuration variable or a constant variable. General variable, stuff that's going to change at runtime. Constructor, stuff that needs to be run once when the resource starts and not again. Command handlers, pretty self-explanatory there. Excuse me. As I was saying, command handler, fairly self-explanatory. That's where the chat commands go. Event handlers, that's obviously our events. Tick, those of you who are Lua orientated might not be familiar with that. Tick is basically just a loop, the stuff that runs continuously, or in this case stuff that is needs to be run constantly, but not necessarily for the entire lifetime of the script. We sort of turn stuff on and off rather, as needed. This, I suspect, is where the bulk of our refactoring is going to go, because if I recall, and I do have a pretty good memory, this is not the best. Mind you, at the time I wrote it, this was pretty good in the sense of my skill level and what I was able to achieve. This was pretty good, and I was proud enough to release it, or I was happy enough with it to release it. By today's standards, not so much. We'll come back to that. And then finally functions, or utility functions, helper functions, basically just stuff that gets called multiple times throughout the script that I don't have to want to write 100 times over. So let's, just to start with, I'm going to re-familiarize myself with all 900 lines of code. As you can see, it is a client-only resource. There is no server component to this resource. That might change. I'm not sure. I know there has been substantial upgrades in OneSync since I originally wrote this resource 5 years ago. There may be some natives or state bag stuff that may require the server, but we'll see. Anyway, let's have a look. Ooh, okay. First thing is the multi-line, multi-variable declaration. I stopped doing that a very long time ago, but evidently I still do it here, so that's alright. We will come back and fix that later, but this is what I was talking about before, sort of stuff that's handy to change quickly, but not necessarily going to change throughout the runtime of the script, so like a general variable. Just to humor myself, have we got the upgraded C# version? Please update. No. Okay, I'm gonna do that quickly. Hopefully it won't take long. If memory serves, all I need to do is copy over a handy dandy little file. What I'm doing here is basically telling my IDE, hey, I know you're running on C# 7 or whatever, but I want you to use something a little bit newer. Just because it adds some handy language features. So let's go to, oh, here you can just look at my Git for a minute while I restart Visual Studio. We are getting there slowly. Okay, let's see if we can bring the screen back. Yes, we can. Excellent. Did that work? No. Drat. Why didn't that work? Do I need to make a change in the CS project file? Possibly. Yes I do. I need to update a property group. Okay, whoops. That's fine. It won't take very long, since there is literally just the one project file. I will need to close the IDE again though. Visual Studio doesn't like it when you edit project files that it currently has open. Okay, hopefully that is now all we need to do. Yes, excellent. The new expression can be simplified. That is exactly what we want. Fantastic. All right, back to what we were doing. All right, so we've got a couple of constant vector 3 values here. Position vector, rotation vector, raycast vector. From memory, the position vector and the rotation vector are the initial values, as in the initial offset values. Let's have a look. Yes. Yes, indeed. They are default values. We could probably rename those to be a little bit clearer. Try and clean this up at the same time. No, I don't need to know that error. Thank you very much. There we go. I also don't need these because it's pretty clear from the initial definition what's going on. So we'll just rename this to default position. And we can get rid of the word vector. I think it's pretty obvious what it is. There we go. Raycast vector. What are you, sir? You're an offset from the player. From the player? Yes, from the player. So this is basically saying start where the player is and then go forward to this amount of offset from the player. Yeah, okay, that's fine. We might just rename that to raycast offset. There we go. All right. Next, we have internal const string, config file name, and tow controls. All right, so we'll put that on its own line. This is horrendous. I hate this, but this is the custom, oh, what's the word? Like keybind helper for the help text. Oh, why are we doing it like this? The externals has a way of doing this. I don't know why we're doing it like that. Oh well, definitely room for improvement there. What is this? Screen.string to array. Converts the input string to a string array containing strings each 99 characters or less. Oof, okay. That, yeah, definitely some room for improvement there. And actually, I'm just gonna... I'll put it up here. I'll just... to do. Spelling is hard. Query replace. Alright. Otherwise, I'm just going to leave that alone for now. Alright. General variables. What do we got going on here? More one-line nonsense. Excellent. Let's get these all cleaned up. Alright. Internal bool drive on, internal bool go faster, internal bool go slower. So from memory, these determine the speed with which you can position and rotate your vehicle that you are attaching. But my question would be, why are they global variables? Are these operating in different loops? Do we have multiple ticks? Attachment tick versus where are you on control, which is referenced where. Ooh. Okay. Yeah, like I said, a lot of room for improvement. These almost certainly do not need to be global variables. This one does. This is a mode thing. But, yeah. To do. Make not global. Alright, vehicle, temp tow vehicle, temp vehicle being towed. Okay. Again, I'm querying why they need to be global. Is it because they are called remove last attachment if exists temp tow vehicle, or exists use tow tensile? Okay. Oh wow. I have a thing for nesting. This is a prime example of nesting. This is wow. Okay, I'm gonna actually take a screenshot of this and send this to somebody who I'm helping learn C#, and I'm gonna say this is the example of nesting. Okay, so to let everyone else in on the joke, if you don't know, basically nesting is when you have things within things within things. So in this case, it's if statements within if statements within if statements within if statements within if statements, and you basically end up with all of this dead space on the page. It's not like functionally it's fine. Functionally it makes zero difference. Just from a reviewing and a code point of view, it makes life painful because you kind of have to follow along and try and find the bit that you're looking for. The way you fix this is pretty simple. I won't actually do it right now because I don't want to touch it until I've read the whole script, but basically for this top level one, for example, instead of having one tiny if statement and a gigantic else statement, you take your if statement, you make it return, assuming it's in a function, which in this case it is, and then voila, your entire else statement goes away. And this works because if this condition is met, it returns, it kills the function, it's done. So now if this is false, it's gonna run in here. And you repeat this process until you don't have a gigantic amount of dead space on your screen. Anyway, back to what we were doing. Oh, that's right, we were saying why are these global variables? I don't know. The fact they are prefaced with temp annoys me from an OCD point of view, because if they're temp, then why are they global? Temp inherently, in my mind, means that they should exist only within the lifetime of the function or the tick that they are being called. So I hate everything about that. We're gonna copy and paste our exact statement from before, our exact comment. Make not global. Config. Excellent. Immediately we can do something about this. We can make it read-only because we don't really want to be changing our config at runtime by accident. By making it read-only, we create a new instance of it when the script is initiated. We can update it, which I assume we do. We update it here in the constructor. Why does that string have a capital C? Oh boy. And only the constructor is allowed to update the value of config. If you try to update the value anywhere else, I'm just picking a random spot in the code. If I now try to set the config to null, it's not going to let me. It's going to tell me, oh, it's read-only. You can't do that. So it's just a fail-safe, really. Just a sort of one of those things that we can do to make sure we don't accidentally break stuff later down the line. So that's good. That's fine. Let's take a quick peek at the config and just see what we're working with here. So we've got a public class config, enable line, enable instructions, instructional display time. Just to add an underscore in there because it makes it a little easier to read. Anywhere I do an underscore, we're basically talking about seconds. So in this case, it's 15 seconds and then 3 zeros afterwards actually make it seconds because this is milliseconds, not seconds, but just at a glance, it makes it a little bit easier to read. We have an iRead-only list of model attachment blacklist, new list model, new model blimp. Okay, fair enough. I'm just wondering, does that work? Because model is, we're declaring a list of model, but I know that we're providing a string here. It must be, when the JSON is interpreted, it must be creating a new instance of model. I'm assuming that it takes a string for the constructor. Yeah, public string model. Okay, well, I mean, if that works, it works, I suppose. That's fine. Blacklist to whitelist. Ah, yes, I remember this. It was like an inverse thing. I definitely want to get rid of that in the new version because that's just confusing. Just say replace with separate list. I think I was just being lazy, to be perfectly honest, when I wrote that. I didn't want to have to do something different. I just went, bugger it. We'll add a boolean and we'll flip all the logic. All right. Whitelist for tow vehicles. Whitelist for towed vehicles. I'm not sure I even know what I mean there. How's it going, Chris? It's going. It's going. I'm going down the rabbit hole of code I wrote over 5 years ago. So it's both an enlightening experience and an incredibly cringeworthy one. But hey, at least I can look at this now and go, I've learned from this. I don't write code this bad anymore. Maybe. Anyway. Whitelist for tow. What does this do? What do you do, sir? Oh, wow. Okay. I hate everything about this as well. Multi-line if statements. Long multiple line if statements. If config blacklist to whitelist and whitelist for towed vehicles and not config attachment blacklist contains. Oh my god. Talk about confusing. Alright. Let's not do that. I think we'll copy our statement here, to be honest. Just make that its own thing. Max number of attached vehicles, -1. Truthfully, I'm a lot more trusting than I used to, or a lot less trusting than I used to be. I'm going to give that a default value of like, even 10 is lenient, like 3. I don't know. Do you really need to be attaching more than 3 things? And server owners can totally override that, but this is just for the server owners who drag and drop, who just throw stuff in without looking and configuring. Max distance from tow vehicle, 220. That must be using one of the squared distance checks. Because that's huge. Yeah, I figured. I'll probably change that to just use a regular world.distance check to do place value with world distance value. So the world distance value, what I'm referring to there is actual in-game units of measurement. So like a PED, for example, I think is like roughly 2 game units tall. So if you were to go from the ground up 1 game unit, you'd roughly hit the middle of the PED. Versus this number here is like a squared root distance, which it works fine. And in fact, I think it might even be faster from like a computational point of view. I dislike it simply for the fact that it is a magic number that I do not understand. Like, this says 220. Great. What does that mean? That doesn't mean anything to me, you know. Versus if I write 10, you know, I know roughly in my mind, because I'm a super geek, I know roughly how many units 10 game units is. So that's the idea. Anyway. Change amount. So that must... Oh, yeah, that'll be the actual movement when you're attaching one vehicle to another vehicle. Fast amount, slow amount. Okay. Was that not a constant at the top? No, I suppose it wasn't. Which is fine. Actually, it makes sense that we would give the server owner control over that value. I think that's fine. Okay, cool. So that's that. Last but not least, internal attachment stage. Attachment stage, previous attachment stage. That seems like an oversight. Yeah. No. What does this do? It's called twice in attach and detach. If you cancel the attachment and the attachment stage does not equal none, previous attachment stage equals attachment stage. I don't know why that's there, and to be honest, I'm gonna get rid of it for now, because if we look at attachment stage, right, it's an enum. These are basically string representations or human readable representations of numbers. They go up 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. So if we want to know the previous attachment state, say we're on drive on, right? Drive on's number 4. 4 minus 1 is 3. 3 is position. Boom. We know what the previous attachment stage is, if that's even where I was going. But it's literally it's literally used in 3 places, or 2 places, plus 1 for the definition. So I think we can safely get rid of that for now. I suspect there's going to be a couple of moments like that where we just look at it and we're like, what on earth was I thinking? Why did I do that? Alright. Is that all our attachments? Yes, it is. Attachments. Jeez, Freudian slip. Is that all our variables? Yes, it is. Fantastic. So I'm just going to rename this constant. Variables, general variables. Alright, constructor. Let's have a look. Gameplay ped state set. Yes, okay. So this was my hack to make sure that people had OneSync enabled, because 5 years ago when I wrote this, OneSync was brand new and whiz-bang and nobody used it. Nowadays, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a server that doesn't use OneSync. And regardless of that, there is actually a bit of code we can add to the manifest. So let me get the documentation pulled up. Manifest, resource manifest. There we go. Dependencies, one sync. I'm just going to copy that whole thing because I'm lazy. We'll put it back over here, and then we will get rid of everything else. There we go. So this one tiny bit in the manifest replaced all that code. So awesome. Trigger event, chat, add, suggestion, attach, detach. Okay, so 2 things here. Firstly, I want to add event name and description to config, which will allow the server owners to change it. And secondly, allow for account for command name change. One of the things I plan on doing here, and actually I'm going to write this at the top of the script before I forget, is to replace commands with single command that accepts multiple arguments. And we're also going to allow for the command to be renamed by config, because that is the single largest piece of feedback I've had over the years, is that the /attach command conflicts heavily with cat scripts, which, you know, fair enough. It's one of those things where attach is a perfectly valid name for an attachment script to have, but it's also just as valid for a CAD script to have. I'm /attaching to this call or whatever. So that problem is fairly easily solved by just replacing it with, instead of /attach and /detach, it'll just be maybe like VA for vehicle attachment or some other kind of prefix space attach, and then boom, problem solved. The problem goes away. And we'll let the server owner or the developer change that prefix through the config. Is this going to be paid to? No, sir. No. So I explained at the beginning in a bit more detail if you want to jump back and listen to my full rant, but no. The answer is no. This will be a free update. All right, key mapping. Whew. Okay, whenever I see the same function, or in this case, the same native being called, how many times? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 times. Wow. Whenever I see a function being called 11 times, immediately in my brain I'm thinking, why is this not being called in a loop? Why is this not being called in a loop? So that will definitely be fixed. Thank the Lord, I love you, but I don't like always giving you money. You cheap bastard. No, it's fine. I get it. The cost of living in the world at the minute is insane, and I understand that I operate in a what is effectively an entertainment market. You know, if you're choosing between paying for groceries or paying for a 5M script, that's obviously no choice at all. So I got you. I understand. All right. Let's do this right now. I was going to do a comment, but let's actually write some code for once instead of just leaving comments everywhere. So we'll do an internal. Actually, this can be a const variable or a constan. Wait, no, that does have a T. Why is that? Oh, that's weird. Okay. Anyway, it can be an internal read only, I read only dictionary. No, it can't be a dictionary because it has more than one value. We're gonna have to do a model for this. I say have to, like, like I've got no other choice. I could do a tuple. I could do a string tuple, but I hate that. This is a typed language. I might as well make use of the type. So I'll create a model for that. Food or fire alarms reborn? Hard choice. I know, right? I know. Alright, so let's create a new model. For those not familiar, i.e. our Lua-orientated friends in the room, a model is basically just like a container for data that I can call in a consistent fashion. So in Lua, for example, some developers will create tables. I'm trying to think of an example. Like you might have like a vector 3, like a position data, and next to that you might have a Boolean value, a true, false, and maybe true means it's I don't know, it's an entry, and false means it's an exit. And that table may contain nothing but vector 3 true, false values. But because it's Lua, unless you add like syntax sugar to make your IDE know what's going on, you can never actually be confident of what is the content of that table. Whereas in our case, using the exact same scenario, we could create a model for that and call it like teleport entry, and we could tell the code, hey, it's always going to have exactly one vector 3 position value and one Boolean true false value, definitely every time without fail. And that's the benefit of typed languages. Food would be sacrificed for Patron Reborn. We'll start a cult. We'll start a Pager Reborn cult, because it's getting a bit like that in the Discord. People are getting restless. All right, so we are going to create a new public struct, and we will call it key mapping value. Sure, let's go with that. Can always rename it later if I think of something better. Alright, so what do we need? We need a command name, we need a description, and then I'll grab the other two things in a minute. So it's going to be a public string command name, get set value, public string description, get set value. Alright, these have specific names that I don't remember, but that's okay because we can find out now. Default mapper, default parameter. Control mapping, I think is what it's called. But we can check the documentation, the lovely, lovely documentation. It is just called input mapper. Okay, alright, fair enough. So we need a public string jeez, typing no good today. Input map. And then a public string parameter. Alright. Say input parameter, just so we know what we are talking about. Alright, so if memory serves, another big piece of feedback was the fact that these default values couldn't be changed. Obviously, for those that are not familiar, when you register a key mapping, it adds that mapping to your key binding in your game settings, so you can go and change it, but that's per player. So if the server owner wanted every single player to have a key mapped to a specific thing, they would need to change these values here, which they couldn't do without editing the source code and recompiling, which 99% of people are not bothered to do. So for now, I'll just add a comment up here to do allow keys to be defined in config to remind me to do that later. But for right now, this should be fine. So we'll take this and we'll go back to what we were doing, which was an iRead-only list of key mapping value. We'll call it the key mapping values. We'll create a new list. Okay, and then we can pass in our values. So I'm gonna try and cheese this because I'm lazy and I don't want to type it out. If I just copy all of this, thanks to C# new constructor stuff, I should actually just be able to paste. Whoa, it did not like that. That's better. Paste and then come in front and say new. Is that gonna work? Oh, I need to replace all of these with commas instead of colons. Why? No, not up there. Down here, please. Where I had selected. Is this replace next? Is it going backwards? It is. It's going backwards. Why was that set like that? There we go. Does that work? No, because it does not take it. Because I didn't actually create a constructor because I'm dumb. Alright, string. Not whatever that is. String. Command name. String. Description. There. Description. I gotta slow down. When I type fast, I get inaccurate. String input map. String input parameter. Alright. Equals command name. Come on, IDE, finish it for me. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Close. Very close. A for effort. There we go. Alright. Now it should work. Woohoo! Alright, excellent. I must have accidentally replaced that. There we go. Alright, so these line up with these. I still don't like this. And I'm so the problem here, right, is this random string matches exactly this wording. So if it gets changed by like the server owner or something, then this will stop existing, so this will break. Although actually, realistically, the server owner doesn't need to change that. They can change the description. Do they even need to change the description? I don't know. That sounds like a question for future Chris. To do. Does the server owner change okay. Anyway, now in the meantime we can come down here and instead of all of this nonsense we can just do for each key mapping value. Or just say the value. In key mapping values, API.register key mapping value.command value.description value.input map value.input parameter, and then huzzah, 4 lines has replaced 11 lines. That is the power of refactoring. Grand. Take a swig from my water bottle since I've been doing so much talking. That's better. What time is it? 8:15. Alright, we'll go for a little bit longer. Load config value. Load config file. Alright, why does this have a capital? That needs to go immediately. Thank you. Alright, config file equals API load resource file. Yeah, config file name. That's fine. Catch exception. Error loading config file. Revert to defaults. Okay, sure. If config file does not equal null and does not equal empty string. Okay, well, there is a better way of doing that. And it's called if not string is null. Null or white space. We'll do null as null or empty. Config file. Alright. Good night, my Aussie friend. Are you saying that because you're going or because it's late for me? Alright, so this is another instance of nesting. We can just flip the logic here and get rid of the if statement entirely. Excuse me, the else statement entirely. Oh, no we can't. I lie. I lie, because this is a constructor and it is, excuse me, not a function. So I could return here. I can totally return, but the function, I need the rest of this log. Oh, actually, do I? Maybe I'm too tired to be streaming. Am I having a moment? No, that does work. That works just fine. I'm just silly. Ignore everything I just said. That's cool. We'll just do it like that. So if the config file is null or empty, then loading config file is empty, referring to defaults. Try config JSON deserialize config catch exception. Yeah. Okay. That's fine. I'm just going to very quickly check one of my newer scripts because I feel like I have a slightly newer iteration of that config file loading logic with some additional checks in it. Maybe. Something, don't reinvent the wheel if you don't need to. So in newer iterations, I generally have an explicitly created default config, but we kind of handle that with the way the config constructor is handled. We have default values, so that's fine. Okay, so no, newer iterations are basically the same as the old one. The only other thing it checks is actual, like, the values themselves. So, like, for example, if instructional display time is 100,000, that would be too big. Or max distance. Yeah, I'll add a comment. To do add sanity checks on config values as needed. Alright, cool. And that's the constructor under the command handler. So we've got two commands here. Ah, that's right. That's why there's a bunch of global variables, because the actual input stuff's handled via command. So, very generally speaking, when stuff is being done in a tick, that is a loop continuously, my preference is to do control input checking via the key press logic. So, like, if the move left button, i.e. the A button, is pressed, do something. And the reason that is my preference is because the reason you generally avoid doing that, the whole check for a specific key to be pressed, is the fact that it needs to run in a tick. It needs to run in a loop continuously. But if you already are doing something in a tick, you've already got it there, you might as well use it. Otherwise, you end up with a situation like this, where I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 different commands defined. And all 11 commands are related to movement or control button stuff, which is rough. Yeah, but the upside, the positive side of doing it this way is that you have control, or more specifically, not just you, as in you the server owner, you the developer, you the player have control over these keybinds. I can go into my game right now and I can go to my settings and I can change these buttons to suit me. And I don't really want to ruin that. I don't really want to change that. In an ideal world, there'd be some kind of middle ground where the player could still define a key, but I could still use the natives I need to do to check it in a loop. But evidently we do not live in that world. Okay, here's what I'm thinking. I want to know, with our constructor, with our register key mapping, can this command string take a parameter? I.e., instead of having a command called Inferno Vehicle Attachment -forward, can we just have Inferno Vehicle Attachment control space forward? Is that a valid option? And to do that, we need to check the documentation. If it even has an answer. The command to be executed, the identifier of the bind. Maybe, maybe not. Okay, so we'll add a to-do for now. In fact, I'm going to add it up the top because it's not specific to just that section of code. Check if key mapping commands can take params. If so, compress 11 commands into one command. Because 11 commands is a little bit nuts. It's a little bit nuts, a little bit overkill. Alright. And then we have our attach. So these are the ones that we want to compress down into a single command. This is another brilliant example of nesting. If else. It's a lot. Yeah. Alright, so what we want to do here. To do compress into single command and assign command name from config. Get rid of nesting. Future me will know what that means. It is 2 S's. Should have trusted myself. Oh, I apologize. I didn't change the screen back. There we go. Yeah, you have missed nothing. I've written 2 comments, that is all. Alright, so these just need to be compressed. We can do that later. That's easy enough. Oh, and use a switch statement. We're not what's that guy's name? Yandere dev, I think. We're not Yandere dev. We don't want to have a if else, especially when we can when we're just checking the parameter of one string. That's prime switch statement territory. I just realized this also doesn't do any kind of to lower function. So if you typed help in all caps, that would not work. So I'm sure I will pick up on that when I do it, but just to be safe. Make lowercase. We'll say make args. We'll be specific and make arg lowercase. Alright. Moving on. That's the commands. The tick handler. Alright, so this is the meat and potatoes. This is where stuff gets interesting. And I'm going to leave it alone. Truthfully, that's going to be the hardest part. I reckon. How many lines is it? 340 to 580. That's a fair bit. But that's 5, or 6 to 9. Neither of these are going to be fun. Yeah. Alright. Need another swig of water before we get too excited. We'll start with the functions. We will start with the functions and make our way backwards from there. Alright. This was back in the day when I actually wrote comments. I was good. You should write comments. Documentation is important. You can't see me, but I'm giving a thumbs up. Documentation is good. I do not write documentation in my code. I leave comments. I will leave comments if something is not clear for future me or future anyone else that has to come along, but I don't do this anymore. And, you know, I would make the argument, if you held a gun to my head, that if I have to write a comment like this, or, you know, documentation at the top of a function, the function isn't named properly. Internal vehicle, find vehicle. Okay. That's not named very well. Find vehicle in what sense? Returns the vehicle in front of the player. Okay, cool. If it returns the vehicle in front of the player, how about we call it find vehicle in front of player, or get vehicle in front of player? It's just stuff like that. It's name your functions, and just even with code in general, just write your code in such a way that it just makes sense. Wow, that was really unhelpful. I basically just said, yeah, just write good code. Just don't write bad code. Just write good code. What I'm trying to say is just help yourself out. Do yourself a favor and take the time to name stuff properly. I'm atrocious at naming. I will write terrible function names like this, but then I'll go back and I'll rename it 2 or 3 times. Like if you go back in the Discord and look in the GitLab, the repo updates channel, there are comments, and the whole comment is just like refactor renamed function for the 3rd time because I can't decide on a name that makes the most sense. But that is the beauty of modern IDEs, is that even though, you know, something like this function here, get towed vehicles, is called 8 times, I don't have to change it 8 times. I can just come in here and change it once, and it changes everywhere, and that's the magic of IDEs, and it's a beautiful magic. But anyway. Find vehicle. How are we finding a vehicle, sir? Raycast. Okay. Fair enough. Raycast, world raycast. Yes, we looked at this before. Getting the offset, getting the intercept options. Yep. If we didn't hit anything, or if we hit something but it doesn't exist, wow, that's quite the conundrum. That's a bit philosophical. If you hit something, but the thing you hit doesn't exist. Anyway, or the thing you hit isn't a vehicle, then return. Return null. Okay. Howdy, how are we doing? We're doing, Dr. Fox. We are doing. We are looking at code that I wrote 5 years ago, and we're laughing at past me. But importantly, we're learning. And we are making comments as we go for things that we can improve, that we will improve. And this raycast needs a lot of improvement. No, it doesn't need that much improvement. The thing that stands out the most to me, and honestly it's a nitpick, is just the parameters here. It's not clear. Like, I know what they are because I'm a super nerd and I know the parameters of a raycast off the top of my head. But for people that are just coming along and quickly glancing, like 0.3, okay, cool, 0.3 what? What is the 0.3? So the easiest way to do this is just to initiate a variable right at the top. test my memory here. Is it actually radius? It is. Okay. How embarrassing would that have been if I'm like, oh yeah, I'm a super nerd. I know all the parameters off by heart, and then I get a parameter wrong. That would have been hilarious. But this is what I'm talking about. Instead of just trying to guess what is what, you actually define it. 10. Why did 10 isn't an option? Oh, because the options suck. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Past Chris. I accept that answer. Ped. Ignored. There. English ped is game.playerped. There we go. See how much easier that is? When I glance at my raycast now, I know that my radius is 0.3. I know my intersect options are 10, whatever the hell 10 means. I know my ignored ped is the player ped. It's just easier. And you know, people will make arguments like, oh, it's worse for the code, you're bloating the code. It's like, no, the compiler is smarter than you and I. It knows when I declare a variable and then immediately use it. It can garbage collect it or compile it out or whatever it is. It's not actually a problem. Ah, nice. What code are you looking at? I am looking at the old vehicle attachment code. Let's see if I can pull it up on the other screen. It is the Inferno vehicle attachment circa 2020. 5 years old. It's old. Latest released version was 2021, so it is due for an upgrade. Alright. Okay, we can actually do even better here. We can do ped player ped equals game.player ped. Change our ignored ped to that, just so that we're not calling game.player ped 3 times in the same function. It's like a micro optimization, but every little helps, especially in C#, where you've got that initial 0.02 millisecond overhead, and people scream and cry and complain, oh my god, it's so much, it's too much, 0.02, it's too much. So I really gotta work extra hard to make sure that the resmod value is as low as humanly possible, and in practice that means micro optimizations. Vector 3 start position is the game, is the player ped.position. And then the vector 3 end position is this offset position here, which can be player ped. There we go. Cool. And there you go. I will make the argument that this is easier to read. I'm doing a raycast from the start to the end with a radius with the intersect options with the ignored peds. Want to know what they are? Great, go find out. It's easier, in my opinion, and so I write code like this. Now I have a question. Will you ever get an Imperial CAD integration for your scripts? That's a fair question. That is a fair question, and truthfully, it's one that's come up a lot in the last month. I don't know what it is in the last month. Maybe Imperial CAD's really blown up, or maybe they've just I don't know. The answer is yeah, no, sort of, not really. I can't get into the details, but I am partnered with Sonoran, and because of that, there are certain things that I must abide by. And unfortunately, that means that I can't just blatantly write an integration for what is effectively their competitor, which, you know, is quite fair, I think, in my opinion. That said, Fire Alarms Reborn and Station Alert both have, in my humble opinion, an extensive documentation and developer integrations. We've got the HTTP API, we've got the exports, we've got the events, you got all the documentation to back it up. And you've got me. I am fairly informed on those two resources, as you can imagine. So it is definitely possible for either Imperial CAD themselves or someone who uses Imperial CAD and has the knowledge to do so to write an integration. There is nothing stopping them from doing so. The problem with... Did you ask about Station Alert? Or... Oh, you just said scripts in general. Yeah, so Fire Alarms Reborn is pretty easy. Like, the stuff you need is there, ready to go. Station Alert is tricky, unfortunately, because... as I was explaining in the Discord the other day, or as I was trying to explain the other day, the problem with Station Alert is that unlike a lot of other scripts out there, it needs to listen for things, right? Like, if you imagine, the easiest example I can give here is Fire Alarms Reborn. When a fire alarm goes off, it sends messages. It tells other scripts, hey, there's a fire alarm. It's here. It's at this location. It's at this position. Here are all the details. It's sending that information out into the world. Versus Station Alert is a resource that needs to receive information. So using Fire again, using Fire Alarms Reborn, when that fire alarm goes off, Station Alert listens to that and it goes, okay, I know there's a fire alarm. I know it's at this position. Blah, 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 blah. Let me generate an alert that matches up with that. You know, let me pick out the closest station with players. Let me open the relevant doors. You know, let me open the fire truck doors versus the ambulance doors, or, you know, whatever it is that's going to do. Whatever needs to happen. So the problem with the Station Alert with the understanding of how it works is with something like Imperial CAD, from what I've seen of their documentation, and I should stress that I have not done an extensive look into it, and I'm not trying to say it is not possible, flat out, but just from what I've seen of their documentation, they do not have the functionality required within either their API for their CAD or their 5M resource to gather information. So, and I haven't used Imperial CAD, but given it's a CAD, I'm assuming there is some kind of functionality to create a call, for example. If you create a call for, you know, whatever it is, let's say there's a building fire, right? If you create a call for a building fire in their CAD, there's not functionality for Station Alert to find out about it. So the two ways generally you would go about that is either Imperial CAD needs to explicitly send an event to Station Alert, call one of the Station Alert experts and say, hey, create a Station Alert with this information. Or, number two, is provide Station Alert some kind of way to query Imperial CAD, however often that is, you know, every minute or whatever, and say, hey, are there any fire calls? Are there any fire calls? Are there any fire calls? Something like that. As far as I can tell, unfortunately, there is neither of those things. So that is the reason that there is not an Imperial CAD integration. The Imperial CAD, I was going to say developers, but I believe it was just the one developer. I want to say 12 months ago, it might have been more now, did actually come into my Discord and asked for assistance with creating a bit of an integration. And I happily helped with that. But unfortunately, they just kind of disappeared. I'm not sure if they're still in the Discord or not, but they just kind of disappeared. They didn't reply to those messages after a while, which is absolutely their prerogative. It's their CAD, it's their integration. If they decide they don't want to work on it, that's cool. That's their business. But unfortunately, with what we were just talking about regarding that functionality of Imperial CAD's API and their 5M resource, there's only so much server owners can do. You know, there's only so much server owners and server developers can do. At some point, you hit a wall, and you need the assistance of the Imperial CAD people. So, if they're listening to this, if someone sends this to them, I'm here. I can't write the integration for you. I can't do the work, but I'm happy to help you do the work. Anyway, that was a really long-winded answer. Oh, here we go. I have been talking to Connor, and they are looking to add a command line so you could run a command triggering the station alert like you could IRL with most CADs. At least that's how I know it. A command line so you could run a command. I'm not... It might just be because I'm tired and I'm a little bit loopy. I'm not quite understanding how that works, but new features are good. Hopefully it works out, and everything I just said about being happy to help still stands, so yeah. Anyway, getting back to what we were doing. I need a drink. Jeez, I just went on like a 5-minute TED talk about Station Alert. Okay, raycasts. That's what we were doing. Okay, so another optimization here is we can actually store the hit entity. We can just do raycast.hit entity, because even if this is false, even if it didn't actually hit anything, this will just be null. So it's not like I'm calling a non-existent value. So we can still do our check here, but just replace our references. There we go. Cool. All right. So, find vehicle using a raycast. Unfortunately, 5M doesn't give us too many options when it comes to getting stuff in the game world. There's a little bit more functionality available for props, for objects. We can like get the nearest object of type, but when it comes to just getting vehicles, unfortunately there are not many good options, so this is probably the best it can be. I might tweak these intercept options. I'm not sure why. Yeah, I don't know what's going on here. I feel like in the documentation there is a better way of doing that. Excuse me, not a better way of doing that, I'm rambling. There's different flags. Yeah. 10 would be ragdolls and vehicles. Well, we certainly don't need ragdolls, but we do want vehicles. And vehicles are 2. But according to this, it's mission entities. That's confusing. Yeah. How peculiar. I feel like I've seen other options, more extensive options. Let's check the externals here quickly and just search for the word everything. I'm pretty sure there's an intercept option for everything. Evidently the word everything is called a couple of times. Alright, well, for now, I'm just gonna set this back to 2, and I'll add a comment that this is vehicles. Maybe. Like a command line where you can input a command giving an alternative option, if that makes sense. Oh, within the CAD itself. No, okay, I totally get what you're saying now. I'm picking up what you were putting down. Yeah, that would work. That would be fine. The reason I was misunderstanding you there is because I was thinking about automation, as in you create a call in the CAD and it automatically creates a station alert, whereas what you are talking about is manual, which is also perfectly valid. Works just fine. We were just on different wavelengths for a minute there. Alright. But yes, that would be fine. You can call the exports in station alert and we would all be hunky-dory. Reset towed vehicle. Properly detaches and resets a vehicle that is attached to another. Okay. Position vehicle. opacity, detach, drive on, not drive on rather. Position is vehicle position, place on ground, is collision enabled, await delay, position, reset opacity, lock status, apply force. Okay. Just got up, excuse me. You are good, dude. It is 8:45 p.m. here. I am knackered. I am as tired as you are, but we are at opposite ends of the waking up spectrum. You are just waking up and I'm just wanting to go to bed. Okay. I'm wondering why we store the position, we wait 1 second, we set the position back. Why? Does this not defeat the entire purpose of placing the vehicle on the ground? What the heck? It's 1:45 p.m. here. Damn. Just got up very late because I can. Dude, I feel you. Look, I don't do it so much anymore. As I get into my old age, I try to be more consistent with my schedule, my wake up and go to sleep schedule. But yeah, not too long ago, not too many years ago, I too was like, I'm just gonna go to bed at 2 a.m. in the morning and I'll wake up when I wake up. I'll grace the world with my presence if and when I feel like it. Not being productive for a day. Yeah, sometimes you just need to unwind. Sometimes I have the best of intentions to sit down and do something productive with a day, especially with like 5M stuff, and then I'll sit down at the computer and I'm just like, nah, not feeling it. Not feeling it. And if I'm not feeling it, I'm not going to write good code. So there's no point forcing myself to do it. Anyway. Yeah, alright. This needs some further investigation. What was the point of setting it on the ground? Alright, show code. Show tow controls. Ah yes, this is another grand example of nesting. We can just get rid of that. Return. What about that? Not. I don't understand why I've done this. Because if we look at the externals, for screen, I believe it's the help text. Yeah. Does this not do exactly? It does. It does exactly what we were doing before. Cell email beacon, cell email beacon. Yep. Add text component substring player name, whereas we call add text component sub. Wait. No, I'm having a I'm having a moment. That is literally exactly the same. Cool. I don't know why I've done it like this. I'm just gonna call the screen external. Well, it's no fun. Not my hit the microphone. Not my normal schedule, but no work or college, so why not? Exactly, dude. Why not? Why not? Display help text, tow controls, boom. All this code replaced by one. Easy. Alright, on control. Oh, this is the big mummer, isn't it? Oh, good lord. It's still going. It's still going. Jesus, how many lines is that? Spoiler, the answer is too many. Oof. Alright, handles the control input for keyboard mapping. Yeah, look, I am... Yeah, no. Not today, sir. Not today. to look at. Got to enjoy life before 7 years of med school. Oof. Yeah, no. Still no spot, but have been accepted. Nice. Congrats. That's awesome, dude. I could never do med school, I reckon. If for no other reason than I am a terrible student. I just do not have the attention span. 7 years, that's insane. I hope you have a hobby. I really, really hope you have a hobby, and I hope you enjoy that hobby, and I hope that hobby gets you through med school. And if you don't have a hobby, start looking now. The only reason I got through university myself is because the course was so hands-on. If there was not that hands-on component to my course, I would not have passed. 100%. 100%. Is already being used. Determines if a vehicle is already being used as a tow truck or a vehicle being towed. Okay. Vehicle state get is being used null. Vehicle state set true. See, this is... I hate this. Wait, no, do I hate this? No, I don't hate this. I hate this for a different reason. I was going to say I hate this because there's no indication in this variable, or rather this function name, that it's going to set the state, which is true. But it doesn't actually set a value. This true value is throwing me off. It's basically initializing it with a default false value, which is fine. But I could definitely see this being abused. If, for example, like you were a troll in a car park, I'm gonna explain on stream how to abuse the script. Oh boy, I'm sure this won't end poorly. But for example, if you were a troll in a car park and you had like 50 cars all in a row, you could just, like, while the tool was open, run down and select every single car, or not even select it, just like hover over it. Because if I'm not mistaken, this is called. Where is this called? Yeah, no, so this is called every time a vehicle is selected. So you could run down a car park, 50 empty cars, and you could just hover over them. And it would set the state bag of those cars to false, even though you don't need to. Which isn't the end of the world, but if the state doesn't need to be set, then don't set the state. To do. Ensure we can remove this default int value safely. Oh yes, I do sports. Oh, good for you, dude. I was never a sporty person, unfortunately. I've always been sort of an indoorsy kind of person. But yeah, sports is good. I think that's actually doubly good because it's obviously a hobby and it keeps you distracted mentally, but good for exercise and stuff. Especially if you're going to be sitting around hitting the books for 7 years. Your work is outstanding, Chris. Hopefully Beta Reborn drops soon. Love your work. Betty, you missed the part like 20 minutes ago where we were talking about the Pager Reborn cult we're going to start. I'll send you an invite, dude. I'll make sure I get you that Pager Reborn cult invite. But thank you for the kind words. I really appreciate it. Clipping this for the... Breaking news. Inferno developer creator leaks crazy exploit on 5-year-old script. Yeah, no, like I said, it's not the end of the world, but it's like... It's just unnecessary. It's like if you went into the grocery store to, like, I don't know, buy apples. And you're looking at the apples and you pick an apple up and then you like put a sticker on it saying, I don't want this apple, and you put it back down. And then you pick up the next apple and you put a sticker on it, I don't want this apple, and you put it back down. You do that for like 10 apples before you actually get the apple that you want. It's like, sure, you could. Do you need to though? I missed the comment, I closed my browser accidentally. No, that's okay. I'm sure talking about cults on YouTube is perfectly legal. Alright, I will be back in just a second. That's better. Alright. Oh, okay. Yeah, this is bad too. Again, here we go again. Inferno developer announces 2 exploits in his script. This is bad because we're checking if it's set, which is good, but then we're not actually checking what it's set to. We're assuming it's a Boolean value, but it could be anything. It could be a string, it could be a number, it could be God knows what. So we need to not do that. Confirm this is actually a bool. Alright, set vehicle is being used, initializes if null. Okay, yeah, this is me being lazy. This is bad. This is bad. You're calling a function, you're assigning it to a boolean, but then you're declaring that boolean as disregarded. It's, no. Bad. I don't need to expand on that, I'll know what I mean. Vehicle state is being used, true, yeah, whatever, we can do better when we get back to it. Get towed vehicles, returns a list towed vehicle, a vehicle is towing. That's a mouthful. Again with the default value stuff, dude, no. No, do not. Return JSON converts a serialized object list. Yeah, okay. And again, confirm. It's not a bool this time. It's even worse. It's a list. That could really go very bad. Confirm this is a list. Can I, as what your general assume that to ask. Can I ask what your general opinion is towards Imperial CAD versus Sonoran CAD system, as my opinion is rather biased, as I have not touched Sonoran since its death period. I didn't realize Sonoran had gone through a death period, to be honest. Look, truthfully, I have an opinion, but it's probably not the opinion you're thinking. I have an opinion as an end user, not as a developer. And what I mean by that is that when I used to roleplay on servers, which is not been something I've done for a very long time, those servers used Sonoran. And so I like Sonoran. I'm familiar with Sonoran. I used to do some work for a server where I say built a framework. That sounds more expansive than it actually was. Let's say I built a handful of scripts that hooked into Sonoran that resembled a framework in the sense that using Sonoran's character system, its license system, its record system and all of that, I was able to build out a script that basically allowed us to use the Sonoran CAD as a framework. So instead of, for example, having a character created in ESX and then having to recreate that same character in Sonoran, you created the character in Sonoran and then we just took that data directly out of the Sonoran database, thanks to their API, and we're able to just use that data in game, which was very cool. And the guys over at Sonoran were very helpful during that period of me building out that system. You can go and look in their Discord if you want. You can go and search for messages sent by me. There's like hundreds, and 99% of those messages sent have absolutely nothing to do with Inferno Collection or Station Alert or anything like that. It's just me working with the with the Sonoran guys on that script. And they were very helpful, and so I like them for that reason. Imperial CAD, truthfully, never used it. I really don't have a whole lot else to say on the topic. Yeah, I've looked at them. I've looked at their website. I've seen their stuff. Mind you, it's been a very long time. It's been at least a year and a half, if not 2, I think. Don't quote me on that. But from what I've heard, Imperial puts a lot of emphasis on like the design, like it looks like a CAD, if that makes sense. I believe that's generally what people say. Beyond that, truthfully, I just don't have an opinion. Not in the way that I suspect you're asking me for an opinion. If you ask me, if you put both products in front of me and you said pick one, unfortunately I'm going to pick Sonoran just because it's what I'm comfortable with, it's what I'm familiar with. I went back and watched again, and my Discord at happily be a part of that cult. Yes, the cult of Pager Reborn. How about we just say anyone that makes a comment in the Pager Reborn suggestion channel gets an automatic invite to the cult. That seems fair. Anyway, get towed vehicle. Oh yeah, we looked at that. Yeah, bad. We'll come back and fix it later. Add new towed vehicle. All right. Adds a new towed vehicle as a vehicle to be towed. Sure. Get towed vehicle. Is that thing there? Yeah, that's fine. List. Yeah. Sure. It's pretty bog standard stuff there. Nothing too crazy. Update towed vehicles. Updates a towed vehicle that is already being towed. Okay. Why? Is my first question. Why? Oh, because we move it. See, in my mind, looking at this today now, I would have assumed that you don't actually add a new tow vehicle until that positioning is finalized. Like, you select the vehicle, you position it on the tow truck or whatever, and then you finalize it, then it gets added. It looks like that is not the case. That is not how that works. No, it's not. You add it and then you go to position it. Okay. From a design perspective, I'm not wholly happy with that, truthfully. I kind of understand why I did it like that, but I'm not entirely happy with that. So let's make a comment at the top. Query don't attach. Don't add a vehicle to be towed until position is finalized. Yeah, okay. How does this logic work though? Get all towed vehicles, remove everything where the network ID matches the network ID, and then... Is this adding a whole ass vehicle? No, it's adding a towed vehicle. Okay, I was gonna say, we do not need to store the entire vehicle. Like, we do not care about the paint color, the number of doors, the neon headlights. Like, we don't care about that. No, we just store a network ID and an attachment position and an attachment rotation. That's curious. Why do we store that? Why do we store that? It's set but never read? Is what I'm seeing? No, it's read here. Oh, this comes back to the whole... It's stored on the vehicle until... Oh, sorry, it's stored on the vehicle immediately. Yeah. I'm just querying if that's even necessary. Because if you've got one vehicle... I'm just thinking about this on the spot. If you've got one vehicle and you attach it to another vehicle, can you get the offset of that attachment? I've been on the browser. Nobody told me. Yeah, now you tell me. Now you tell me. It's too late. The damage is done. God, when did we even look at that? That was ages ago. That was back when we were doing the text command. Oh my god. Why did no one tell me? I'm a terrible streamer. This is why I don't stream. Yeah, based on the Motorola FlexCAD. Yeah, that's kind of the impression that I got. Thanks for the answer. Yeah, no, I'm always happy to engage in conversation. I am nothing if not a professional yapper. Oh, jeez. Alright. Just how long ago was that? I've got to know. That was like way back here. So all of this. Oh god, I'm bad. Ugh. Anyway, I'm probably gonna stop when we get to the end here because it's late and I'm getting tired. But anyway, what I was talking about is, oh, that's right. It was the position stuff. Whether or not we actually needed to store this positional data, and I don't know. I'm too tired to find out now, so we'll just say query, do we even need to store this? Alright. Last but not least, remove towed vehicle. Yeah, okay. Using the network ID as a key. That's probably fine. That's probably fine. That's probably fine. If I say it 3 times in a row, that makes it true. Yeah, alright, so what we didn't look at was the on control and the attachment tick. So I'll make myself a separate to-do look at attachment control. Oh no, I'm losing my marbles. Look at on control and tick, because what I would like to do, not that, what I would like to do is move this from a tick inside probably the command handler or some kind of function. It doesn't need to be running in a tick, because when it's running in the tick, it needs global variables, and that's just silly because it doesn't need global variables. Like all this stuff that we looked at way at the beginning. Why is this global? Why is this global? It doesn't need to be global. And if it's running in a function, it makes it a little bit easier to control the lifespan of those variables. But anyway, I think that will do. How long have we been going for? 1 hour 40. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's good for a Sunday. Alright, well, thank you all very much for watching. No, wrong one. Oh, whatever. I'm not a streamer. I don't pretend to be a streamer. I don't know how half this stuff works. Hopefully it's vaguely entertaining. And we have some good discussions. I like talking with people. It's good. But anyway, that's all. Thank you very much for joining me, and thank you for your questions and your comments. It's good fun. Keeps us all entertained instead of just staring at boring code the whole time. And yeah, we'll take another look at the vehicle attachment. I'll probably do it on stream again, just because it's one of these easier ones that I can actually stream without having to worry about everything else. But yeah, that's it. Thank you very much. Good night, good morning, wherever you are in the world. And I'll see you guys later. See ya. Bye.